Alright, what's going on, guys? This is Joel here. So I decided that I'm going to create a video basically explaining how to, all the tools you need necessarily to track your macros and how to do this, because I feel a lot of people are out there looking for help, especially when it comes to nutrition in general. And no matter what, nutrition is going to make up the key amount of what you want to do with your body. If you're looking for overall athletic performance, if you're looking to, enhance your composition, if you're looking to lose weight, it all comes down to calories. Of course, there's a specific breakdown of what you should do. So, tools you need: tracking macros, flexible dieting, 101. Here's what we're going to go through. So the main things to do when you first start, honestly, just using your computer, pulling up a simple calculator online. There's tons of them. One of the most prevalent ones is the iffym.com. If you go there, they actually have a calculator where you literally plug in your information. It spits out, an estimate of where you should be, and always be as accurate as possible. Don't try to lie about it and say that you're way more active than you are, because this is all just a calculation. There will be adjustments as you go. No matter what, if you're trying to gain weight, lose weight, body fat, or muscle mass in general, though you'll have to make adjustments just due to the way the metabolism works. So, for instance, you should aim to, if you're looking for losing weight or losing body fat, which is the term a lot of people typically want to do. A lot of people are looking for weight loss, but what they really want is losing body fat to keep that composition, the aesthetic of, carrying lean muscle mass and not just being like turned to skinny fat, where they get to a weight they want to be, but they don't look the way they want to look. So losing about 1 to 2 pounds a week is probably the maximal rate you want to go. Same thing with gaining weight. You don't want to put on a ton of body fat, especially if you're lifting. You just want to, build up that muscle mass. All right, so once you have your calculations, like I said, I recommend, at least sticking with those macros, that amount of calories for about 7 days at least. And to do this, you need to track your weight. So you typically would weigh yourself in the morning, or at least a few times a week throughout the week in the morning, and kind of analyze for 7 days about how your weight's fluctuating. If you're dropping more than 2 pounds that week, you might have to up the calories a little bit. Or if you're just kind of not really seeing too much change, maybe even slightly dropping the calories just by even like 50 to 100 calories in general, mainly coming from your proteins and your carb source. As far as the ratio breakdown, so when it comes to what specific ratio you should eat, what's typically recommended on the high end is about 1 gram of protein per body weight. So especially in a fat loss phase, somewhere between there. I typically like to keep mine a little bit higher, like a 1.2 times my body weight, just because I think protein is very satiating, it's very filling, but there's no real additional benefit from consuming a ton of protein. Your fats are another source, so I typically keep mine between like 20 to 25% of total calories, just because this kind of allows me to have a little more flexible approach when it comes to what I'm eating. So sticking to like a really low fat diet makes it where it's good, because you can have more carbs and protein, but then it gets hard, like you really have to focus on the sources. So I like to personally give myself just a little adherence to those higher caloric density foods like peanut butter or nuts, any type of like avocado or anything like that, just because it allows me to have a little more flexible approach. And when you really limit your fats down, it can be okay, absolutely, but it makes it hard to really enjoy kind of other foods, because typically fat content is pretty moderate in a lot of things that you consume, and then the rest can come from carbohydrates in general. And a lot of people are scared to consume carbohydrates, but that's honestly what fuels your performance and can help make it through these fat loss phases, or especially when it comes to gaining weight. And when it comes to gaining, about approximately like 0.8 to 1 gram worth of protein per body weight is highly recommended for that, and to give you enough adequate levels. Same thing, doing like a percentage of fat where you could do 20-25% and then fill in the rest of the void with carbs. But like I said, a lot of these calculators online kind of already do that for you and give you that estimate. And it depends how aggressive you want to be too. So you can always, go into, if you want to reach that 2 pounds per week of trying to lose weight, then you would go for a more aggressive caloric deficit, if that makes sense. From there, now you have to kind of figure out like what app or how you're gonna track these macros. So there's tons of resources and tools out there. Some of the most prevalent ones are My Macros or MyFitnessPal. I typically use MyFitnessPal just because I'm really familiar with it. Been using it for a while. It's super easy to go on there, and I can communicate with clients and track everything on my own as well. It has a barcode scanner, so you can literally scan anything that's kind of pre-packaged. So you literally just take your app on your phone or anything on your computer, just scan it right in, like right here, plugs into your diary. Or there's also like a restaurant locator. So if you're going to like any chain restaurant or even some local restaurants too are on there if requested enough, where you can kind of plug in what you eat. That's another thing you have to really be careful with is being as accurate as possible when it comes to tracking your food. So if you're making stuff that's really complicated, like salads with all kinds of berries and I don't even know, adding oil and stuff like let's say more than like 5 ingredients, and it gets kind of hard to track there. So it's a little easier usually if you just keep the simple ingredients, stuff that you can measure out. And it comes down to also using a food scale to be as accurate as possible. Once again, something you don't have to like spend too much money on, honestly. Like you can find pretty cheap ones for under $20. It's just something that's super convenient and easy. So when you measure out, always trying to be consistent. So for example, when it comes to like your protein sources or something that you have to cook, so as you cook something, it diminishes in volume just due to water content being released. So I would always recommend, keeping the same measurement. So if you're weighing your meat or any, like potatoes, chicken, if you're doing it cooked, keep it with it cooked. Keep measuring it cooked. Don't start measuring it raw and then start measuring it cooked too. And you can look up on MyFitnessPal, there's usually some that are already like pre-labeled as cooked or raw, because like I said, that volume, like if you were to cook like a 12-ounce steak, it can usually dwindle down to I don't know, 10 or 9-ounce steak by the time it's fully cooked. So you got to keep manage on that. So keep things as simple as possible. Try to stick to the foods you like and enjoy. And as you go on, you can look up recipes online, and there's tons of stuff that allow you to create more macro-friendly, options of meals if you want. Something I typically do that I think is the easiest is I call it an assembly prep. So I literally cook up like a large batch of protein, for example, like chicken thighs, ground turkey, lean ground beef. You kind of put it in separate Tupperwares. Then I'll make up a bunch of roasted vegetables, typically just like a melody blend of some sort, and then I'll cook up a couple carbohydrate sources as well, like sweet potatoes, brown rice, and store them in all separate containers. That way I can kind of mix and match like as I'm going, and I'll just weigh instead of, or I'll weigh my meals out, I'll put it like, for example, like 6 ounces of cooked chicken, and, with about 6 ounces or 5 ounces of rice, and then throw on like 100 grams of vegetables to get some extra fiber in. But yeah, I think that is like one of the easiest ways to do that as far as a meal prep goes. There's also ways that you can prep your individual meals if you want and have them all organized. But I like to change my stuff up, so I just kind of like to throw it in Tupperware as I go. But that's pretty rare. That's when I'm just when I try to prep as much as possible. But usually I'm on the go, so trying to eat anything that's most convenient, either from like Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, Subway. Apparently all the A's, but yeah, so those are the two main tools. So once you start with your calculator, get a food scale, start tracking your macros, and definitely try to report in on your progress. So monitor the weight. Even on MyFitnessPal there is a tool on there where you can plug in your weight, and it kind of shows you your chart of how you're progressing. Even MyFitnessPal has its own little macronutrient calculator on there. But I would probably recommend sticking to, that's more just a general guideline for what they do. I would, especially for like a fat loss phase or gaining phase, change up those percentages just a little bit. And you do that by simply just going into the settings and then replugging in what you got from another calculator, such as like IFFYM, to make that tool more adherent for you. But all right, in the future, I mean, I plan on doing, example days of what I do and how I track my food, and just to give examples and show, because I feel like it's very helpful for people to see that. It might give them ideas, to do on their own. But expect more content soon. I want to get into more like specific training protocols, other dietary terms, when it comes to, tracking calories and monitoring that progress, because there are absolutely other tactics, doing like higher calorie days, lower calorie days. But when you're first just starting, I'd recommend just sticking with a set amount of calories for 7 days a week. See how your body responds to that before you start, changing up too many variables. Because I mean, consistency is key, and it helps really hone in on what you're trying to do. But feel free to like, subscribe, and expect to see some content in the future.